next 25 minutes, let's see what we can make out of this panel. And I would like to invite the panelists, Dr. Gautam, Dr. Kunal, Dr. Sajan, Dr. Chandra, and Dr. Jatin. And that's what it should be, and Amit is not there. Okay, so straight to the case, because I would like to finish on time, and let's see how interactive it can be. The other panelists can unmute themselves and can come in, and I think I can request other panelists to just mute themselves so that the others are audible. So we have a 60-year-old female diagnosed as a cancer of breast 2013, and we have a breast conservation surgery done. We have a T2N1, and that was one node positive. We have a strong ER/PR positive. We have a HER2/neu, which is negative, and the patient received adjuvant chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and took AI for 5 years. At this point in time, very quick, 1 minute, Dr. Chandra,
yeah.
Do you give AIs for 5 years, or in some cases you do give beyond 5 years?
Node positive extended AI, we are giving extended AI after doing a bone health and all that. So bone health is good enough, and I'll extend over next 2 years. That's what we have data.
So this you will do it for next 2 years.
Yeah,
that's what you standard for any node positive.
Any node positive.
Dr. Jatin, you are there?
Yeah, I'm there.
You will be doing the same thing, or you do at 5 years?
No, I'm giving extended adjuvant.
Okay. So I would just now like to take it off because the topic is different. But yes, if you look at the standard of care, it is 5 years still. The beyond extension, there are few trials, but as of date, if you give 5 years, it should be enough if it's the aromatase inhibitor. For high risk, yes, few people have tried it, but we'll stop here because that's what the evidence is all about. So let's come to that. Hormone therapy was stopped after 5 years, presented at 13 months of stopping AI with severe backache, and PET scan showed a bony disease with multiple liver mets. Do we biopsy every disease after it comes back, Dr. Sajjan? Do we biopsy every metastatic breast cancer?
Yes, sir. We biopsy wherever it is possible. Sometimes it becomes not possible, only bone disease. Sometimes it is there and difficult, but then anywhere where it is possible, I will do.
Okay, so I think that's the standard for all of us now, and all of us change our practice. That's fair. Anyone who does not want to biopsy? No, I'll take it that all of us agree. So the liver biopsy confirmed it again to be ER/PR positive, HER2/neu negative, and the liver functions was a slightly elevated bilirubin, SGOT 2 to 2.5 times upper limit of normal, SGPT around 2 times of upper limit of normal. That's fine. The PET images look, the liver mets are there and the bony mets are there. So what I wanted to put across, and I think Dr. Kunal can come in. Do you look at this and how do you define endocrine resistance in secondary? Dr. Kunal?
Yeah, so I think if we go by the current guidelines, it is more than 1 year of the prior stopping. Some do say more than 2 years, but I think as a consensus more than 1 year. And while if the patient is on therapy and within 6 months if they progress, then it is considered as primary, and rest all are considered as secondary endocrine resistance.
Okay, Dr. Gautam, do you want to come in? Do you want to differ or you concur with him?
So I am fine with it. It depends on whether you are considering the time period of 2 years or 1 year. So any definition can be sorted out.
Anyone wants to come in? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the adjuvant setting, this patient who had Dr. Chandra here. So in the adjuvant setting, somebody who is somebody who is progressed post adjuvant treatment, more than 12 months is considered sensitive. It's very well less than 12 months is the resistance. So in a metastatic setting, during adjuvant, if a patient has progressed within 6 months, it's a primary resistance. More than 6, yeah. So, but somebody says within 6 months that's what the primary resistance is. So.
2 years that you
2 years for adjuvant. Metastatic is 6.
Can I come in? This is Dr. Vivek.
Vivek, tell me.
So I think what I am clear about is that if the adjuvant is going on and you have progressed, till you have progressed up to 1 year of you have completed your adjuvant 1 year before. So till that time it is secondary, and up to 2 years if you have completed your adjuvant and during that time you progress, then it is primary. And if it is beyond 1 year of your completed adjuvant, then it is not resistant at all. What is for adjuvant?
Yeah, for adjuvant, the definition as per the guidelines would be what most of us agree is that if the primary and secondary, the primary is defined as relapse while on the first 2 years of adjuvant therapy.
Exactly.
Or progression of disease within first 6 months of the first line for metastatic breast cancer. And this secondary will be beyond 2 years. If someone is an adjuvant, has progressed on adjuvant, but beyond 2 years, it could be a secondary response. So I think that was a little, but most of the panelists do agree with this. So we'll move on, but this is very, very important, I think, to our protocol in choosing the right CDK inhibitors. The visceral crisis, do anyone in the panel feel that this patient was in visceral crisis? Anyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Who
Yes,
feels so? Can I? Who feels so? Can you just come forward? I'm not able to see all of you.
Yes,
Can
so
I-
because the organ dysfunction has already started, so I will take.
Sajjan, it's you.
No, I'm not here. So from my side, I would say it's not a visceral crisis, because by visceral crisis we mean that there should be
Fine,
severe
fine.
organ dysfunction. Severe
Jatin?
organ dysfunction.
Jatin, for you it's a visceral crisis?
Yeah, I mean, if you go by the guidelines, it is not a visceral crisis, but practically I am considering this as a visceral crisis.
Okay, so your choice of therapy will be Jatin. I'll start with you then. For a patient,
Yeah.
for you who's practically in visceral crisis, it will be what?
It will be chemotherapy first.
Okay, so for you, any patient who's having a liver mets and has a bilirubin that's starting to rise, you will consider liver mets. You will consider chemotherapy. That's
I
what.
will consider.
That's fine. That's a fair idea. Dr. Gautam.
Yes,
Any
sir, I agree with
differences?
Dr. Jatin. So a patient who has already developed already developed liver dysfunction and SGOT about 3 times. So I will consider it as a visceral crisis and go with the chemotherapy.
Sajjan, I know you are not considering this as a visceral crisis. Your choice of therapy directly.
So my choice will be to go for a CDK4/6 inhibitor along with a.
Okay. So Kunal, visceral crisis,
also-
yes, no.
No, I'll also go with hormonal therapy.
Okay. And Dr. Chandra, quick. Hello? Chandra is not audible. So we'll carry on. The panel is divided. Or let me now pitch in and tell me what I feel as a moderator. I have the privilege of that. I feel I go with my colleagues Sajjan and Kunal. I would not consider this a visceral crisis. And I will come to in the slides why I would not consider. This patient does have time to be given a therapy which will have response. What I would consider visceral crisis is something that is fast progressing, that would not give you a second chance. And that is when I think chemotherapy comes in. And just the starting of a dysfunction with a liver metastasis up to 5 times, even clinical trials allow you to take this patient. So I think in a liver mets up to 5 times upper limit normal could be fair. But it is not only about the quantum of lab, it's a mixture of the clinical picture, quantum of lab reports, and the rapidity of progression. That's what I would consider as a visceral crisis.
Sir, we
Shah,
are-
can I make a comment here?
Sir, sir, boliye sir. Yes, sir.
The most important thing over visceral crisis for liver is concerned should be the presence of pain,
Okay.
because that indicates a capsular involvement or stretching, and that is a marker for pain. We will see it in the ABC5 guidelines, which is just coming in the next month. We just finished writing it,
So, sir, you are in. So, what do you consider this patient? In crisis or not in crisis?
not in crisis.
Okay. So, we move on. We move on. We respect the others. Can I come in? There's a lot of disturbance. This patient, again, the same thing, comes with the bony only mets. So, now we have 2 patients, one with the liver mets and bony mets, one with only bony mets. Will anyone think of a different approach? Dr. Jatin?
Yeah, I mean, if only bony mets are there, then fulvestrant alone, hormonal therapy will be the first choice, and
Which one?
fulvestrant alone can be used in this case.
What is your case against CDK4/6? You have a patient who's affording everything. What is
If
your case against
the
that?
patient is affording, then I would give CDK4/6 inhibitor along with fulvestrant.
For the panel, we consider everyone is affording.
So,
Then the discussion goes
so
on.
one of the trials of the upfront CDK4 inhibitors, the subgroup analysis did not show a benefit in the bone-only disease. Other trials showed a benefit in the bone-only disease. So even if we are giving a single agent, means a hormonal therapy only, maybe letrozole or fulvestrant, I think in bone-only disease we can go without CDK4 inhibitors also.
Okay, see, nothing is absolutely right or wrong. What we are speaking of, if I can pitch in, yes, we have options, and if you give a single agent hormonal therapy, it is fair enough. If someone wants to combine, it's fair enough, but the best results have come with the CDK4/6 along with the aromatase inhibitors or fulvestrant, either way. But the most important thing to tell, and there's a recent publication in Lancet Oncology that's published in February, that clearly tells us that across the spectrum, it does show that the benefit of CDK4/6 does come across the spectrum. If you look at the forest plots, let's also look at the p-value significance, and if the p-value significance has to be seen, we just cannot look at the forest plot and just pick out a chart out of it. So for all practical purpose, it is active across the segments. So let's come to what people were talking about. This is what all of us will discuss. I just want to go across and tell what few of the colleagues have told. Just look at this and look at this marker of around 25 months. And this is what I think people are speaking in the Falcon trial. The Bonimex alone, fulvestrant is showing 22.3 months. So some people have a point. In those affordable, not affordable, we can go for fulvestrant. Sajjan, what's your viewpoint on this now?
Sir, I agree with this because this also is a very important data, and this can be one of the important alternatives to the choice which we have otherwise. So I think anybody who chooses this choice in bone-only disease could also be doing good for the patient. That's what I feel. Can be a good alternative.
Okay, let's come to this, and I'll take the opinion of Kunal. The combination of fulvestrant and anastrozole, and look at the survival OS is around 50 months. So now, with this data, with fulvestrant Falcon data, with the CDK data, what is your choice?
So in terms of first line, I would still be preferring CDK with AI.
Okay.
And reserve fulvestrant with another agent or as a single line for second line.
Jatin, what is your opinion on these three trials? Now, what is your choice?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, usually what we do is with the advent of this new agent, the pattern of my thinking would be that we should reserve fulvestrant for later lines of treatment.
So you will use CDK4/6 upfront?
I would use CDK4/6 upfront, yes.
Dr. Chandra, any thoughts?
I'll use CDK4/6 upfront. So I think we have enough evidence, and probably a meta-analysis showing that yes, CDK4/6 combination has resulted in survival advantage also. I think I would go and use CDK4/6.
Gautam, any different thoughts?
But in bone only, I'm still using the only hormonal therapy.
Okay, fair enough.
Then any other site of disease also, then I'm combining it with the CDK4 inhibitors.
Okay, so you are still not convinced about the data, but this is something to tell you for Gautam probably from tomorrow. Fulvestrant versus the forest plot against anything that is a cyclin. And if you look at Palbo, Ribo, Abema, both favor, the combination is favorable to fulvestrant alone. That's across the trials. To be fair to you, you have this option in the NCCN that any one of the above is okay. But we have to give the best option to the patient. So, that is what Gautam was talking about. Should we be using and salvaging, keeping the CDK4/6 inhibitor for the later use? Any one of your practice, Kunal, how many patients do you really use first line? How many use second line?
So
out of 10 cases.
So it ultimately boils down to the affordability of
all are affordable.
So all are affordable. I would probably want to give to all, only barring if there is probably a low volume disease. Somebody who's frail, elderly, I would probably use only an AI. But otherwise, I would want to give.
Chandra?
So I think within the era of CDK4/6 and PI3K inhibition, and we are moved beyond a single agent endocrine therapy. So we had to use the parallel pathways to extend their survival. So I definitely go with CDK4/6 And PI3K, I'll probably next.
That's fine.
class,
We'll speak. We'll speak.
Yeah. So I think I'll go with CD4.
Okay. For Gautam, you save it for a rainy day.
No,
You
sir,
use
only in the bone disease.
Yeah, only in the bone disease.
All patients.
Only in the bone disease. I take it. But to be fair to you, I want to bring in something. Look at the hazards of a front line and second line. The hazards is actually the same. If we look at it, the quantum of benefit is no different for first line and second line. And if you look at absolute values, the difference in absolute value across trials is 6 months. So it is not unfair. Let's not protect ourselves. It is up to a patient. But if you look at the hazards, the second line is 0.5, the first line is around 0.56. The hazards is matching each other. But look at the absolute benefit. Yes, because second line does not have that prolonged difference. That's why the 6-month difference is there from a first line CDK4/6 versus the second line. So this is for something I think all of us could go and do it patient-wise. There's nothing to go front-wise. But yes, I go with the panel that I also would like to give it as the first line choice rather than the second line if given a choice. Just to give you more data, to give you that the benefit is same, this has been taken from the Mona Lisa 2. And look at the first line ribociclib plus fulvestrant versus the second line ribo plus fulvestrant. The hazards is actually the same. It's just matching each other. Any thoughts? Anyone? Surgeon, any thoughts about first line, second line now?
So I think, sir, I would agree with you that you showed the data also that we could use it salvage in the second line also. But I am still keen to use in the first line. That's what I feel.
Okay.
And yeah.
Fair enough. Anyone in the panel wants to put a point forward before?
I think it's number of patients who go in from first line to second line. That's more important.
Okay.
So when you used CDK4/6 upfront, how many of them have crossed this median survival? Versus somebody who have used AIs, how many of them have used? So that is going to be a clear picture. In that regard, I think CDK4/6 will score over.
I think in that, if you look at the trials, around 3/4 of the patients in both arms go on to receive the subsequent drugs. So that in the lung is different and in the breast will be quite different. So
I think,
please.
South, can I come?
Yeah, please.
When
Jatin,
these trials for CDK4/6 inhibitors came in the first line and all, there was always a subset of patient who had a low volume, low risk, indolent kind of a disease, bone alone disease, and it was fair enough to use a single agent hormone therapy at that moment of time, and you can add on CDK4/6 inhibitor later. I mean, it hardly matters in those cases.
This I want to show now, especially to two of my panelists, and let's convince them, Gautam and Jatin. Visceral disease, is it good enough, and does it take time to act? This is the data which has come from the ABEMA trial, and look at the Monarch trial, and this is what it is. The red line shows the decrease in the disease with the combination versus the gray line shows the decrease with the AI. And this is going with this data. Again, the red line is showing the sharpness. What I wanted to point out is the CDK4/6 plus the hormonal agents do have a sharp effect from cycle 1 to 2 onwards. You see that response is coming and probably takes 3 weeks, but it starts coming from the end of the first cycle to the start of the second cycle compared to AI.
This is Sahu for specifically for abemaciclib.
I don't think it is for across the CDK4/6. Dr. GS,
No.
if you're online, can you give the comment on that?
I can give a comment right now, Shahu, but I will save it for the end.
Okay.
I preempted that this is going to come up, So I have something that I will show you all on this.
So we see very rapid responses actually with the upfront use of CDK4/6 inhibitors. See,
Sachin, the organizing committee had us voted for this, and I agree, and we will just have and stop it here. So all of us agree that CDK4/6 is active. But Jatin, to be fair to you, it is across the CDK4/6, and there is data across the studies for cycle 2 onwards who get these responses. I would like to listen to Dr. GS. He has a more critical opinion about a lot of things.
Shall I come in, Sabha?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so it is as early as 2 weeks. The response starts as early as 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But with the liver dysfunction, I'm a little skeptical using ribociclib. They might die of acute liver failure. So I would not use ribociclib in there. Abema, we have experience. It's a difficult drug to handle. Palbo is a bit safe. So Abema, we are part of the trial, so we know the drug. So It's very difficult drug to handle amongst the 3 CDKs.
So this is how you choose a CDK. But on a class basis, you do see rapid responses.
Correct.
Yeah. So any
But the response was present in only 50%. Can you go to the back slides, one slide back?
Yeah, it will be. Nothing will be 100%. You go to the immunotherapy, any drug, that will be not 90% or 80%. Your chemotherapy, what would be your responses, Gautam? Can I ask you? No. Because we have to compare with chemotherapy. What is the response? It will be 20 to 30%, maybe 40. That's what it is. Okay. So any concern about
Dr. Sahu, you have 3 minutes left. Maybe you ask,
Okay.
if you have any in your armamentarium, if you have any more critical question to ask. Go to that.
I think I had 7 minutes left. The last day song. That's
no,
okay.
3.
I'll take it. So I just wanted to point one more critical thing about this. I don't know how many of you have marked into. If you look at the OS data, at the 2 years, both the arm are same. It is beyond 2 years the separation starts. And this is where you should be looking at the longer OS data. I'll be more looking at the long data for at least the upfront one. That's very important. I'll skip that to tell you that for the endocrine sensitivity pattern, there is a lot of differentiating data between the abemaciclib and the palbo. In palbo, it showed that if you are endocrine resistant, it does not work. But for abema, it works across the endocrine resistance. And for lack of time, I won't discuss this. I know Dr. GS will go into the final things. Age is not a concern. I want to come into how do I choose, and then I'll spend 1 minute on this. How to choose among the drugs? Can anyone come in? Because all the drugs are active, equally active. Anyone? Kunal, please.
Yeah, it's mainly about the availability cost. So palbo and ribo, we have more experience. I have not used abemaciclib so far.
Okay,
So, and it is more easy to probably dose titrate in ribociclib. That is one thing I consider advantageous when you have to titrate from 600 to 400, because otherwise you have to get the new tablet. So that I think cost wise there is nothing to choose.
So basically what I look at is palbo has the most XP. We have most expensive palbo. The Indian doctors. Ribociclib is the second most. QTC is a concern, but it happens is around 2 to 4% of cases. Have a quick look on that. LFT is a concern, as Dr. GS and the panelists pointed out. We have looked into that. LFT has to be seen very carefully for ribo. Abema, there is a lot of diarrhea that has to be a concern. Otherwise, what we know is abema is a continuous dosing, and monotherapy it is approved. A premenopausal ribociclib has the best data. So this is where I will stop. And last question: abemaciclib on CNS. Anyone concerned that I will be using abemaciclib on CNS? Gautam, your thoughts on this?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyone?
I think it's the only CDK which has a CNS activity. But in a ERPR positive HER2 negative disease, to find a brain mets is very, very rare. So it's like, so even somebody who has it, so definitely abema scores over there.
Okay, there's actually one trial which showed the abemaciclib data of intracranial benefit of 25%. Across beyond that, the monarch, everyone had restricted brain mets.
Yeah.
So the activity is on a base, very limited data, but one abemaciclib data is there, the earlier data of 25% response. So is metastatic breast cancer chemotherapy out? It looks that we will have to fail multiple lines before chemotherapy comes in, or we need a visceral crisis, or we need doctors who are still convinced, who would be giving chemotherapy for all visceral mets. So that is what my take will be. But apart from that, a beautiful study. I would like Dr. GS to comment on this. This is from US. They have shown the ribo plus letrozole to be much more cost effective than palbo plus letrozole. Probably because the cost is lesser in US. That's the last thing. How do we manage on progression? This will be definitely what some of us spoke. The option is the last slide of mine. That CDK, we can continue, change the CDK, or we can endocrine, but we have the PIK3 inhibitors, we have the mTORs, and that will be a thing to look at. We are also looking at the extended spectrum of the monarch HER, where we are looking at a chemo-free targeted therapy combo with abema, trastuzumab, and fulvestrant. But to conclude, I'm sorry, I'm finishing on time, so I don't want to go for any more questions. There are interesting time to be a medical oncologist. We are spoiled with too much choices. See the difference of opinion in 5 panelists. That's what it is. CDK4/6 with hormone therapy are the best option, preferably in the first line. That's what my take will. Premenopausal, the data is best with ribociclib. The Palbo data was not great in the subgroup analysis. In the unaffordable inflatus, as people told, low bulk, bone only, the hormone combination of fulvestrant may be offered. That's what I also felt of the data. Post progression, the PIK3CA inhibitors. There's beautiful data on capivasertib. Please look at the publication which came this month. The AKT inhibitor, that's also coming in the hormone positive spectrum, and the mTORs are also there. We have to look, and there are many more which are coming in. So this segment is also getting much more broader as the lung cancer segment is going.
Please.
I
I would say the mTORs are always there, and we should pay equal respect to the mTOR inhibitors.
In which line?
PIK3 non-mutant, wild type, and also post PIK3 mutant failure, mTOR can be used.
Yeah, that will always be there. The data is weakening because we have had a lot of side effects of toxicity, but other new drugs are coming in. Look at the AKT inhibitors, that data look very strong. PIK3 may go to third line, I don't know. But in a PIK3 mutated, I feel it will be second line, definitely, for always. Any one small comment before I stop and say, I'll give it to Sachin. No.